Okay, yeah.
Hi guys, it's your two poly chicks
Hi.
again, Tiffany
Hi,
and
guys.
Cindy. And in honor of Father's Day or Father's Month, we actually
Mhm,
did June as a Father's Month. We
mhm,
wanted to have another special guest on. We have Nick Mazzeo, who resides in Southern California with his wife and two
mhm,
boys, ages 8 and 4. He's
mhm,
worked in human services for 6 years, expanding services for fathers, and was a founding member of the DADS Matter program. He's currently working as a program manager for multiple child abuse protection prevention programs. And so, hi, Nick, how are you?
I'm
Hi,
doing
Nick.
well. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you
Yes,
for coming
yes,
on
thank you.
today. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we always appreciate you guys coming on and discussing your passions and your, what your interests are with us,
Mhm,
because it's
mhm.
taking your time out to spend with the two poly chicks. So um one of the program that you had run, I know it's not fully in existence yet. I know you have the shirt on to show to represent for the the Dads Matter organization. But can you just tell us a little bit about the Dads Matter program, some of the resources that it offered, and why it was so important for you to join a fatherhood advocacy group?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first started in the human services industry, I got the opportunity through AmeriCorps, which is a federal program,
Yeah.
Okay.
to join a fatherhood program and help build it.
Mhm,
And for me, that was a no-brainer. I was a young father myself. My eldest son was 2, and it was something that I had experienced. So even as a very privileged individual, right, I had still experienced like this push away from involved fatherhood.
Yeah.
So getting the opportunity to work on a program that would actually help, bring about equity in parenting and other parts of our life too,
mhm,
um, it was a no-brainer.
mhm.
So the Dads Matter program, our motto was that fathers are as important to the lives of children as mothers are.
I
And
like
that's a little
that.
bit of a, yeah, it's a little bit of a controversial statement for some people, but
Mhm.
even if we can't fully embrace that, there is enough research over the last 30 years to prove that fathers are vitally, vitally important to the lives of their children.
Yeah.
And yet
Can you
when you
repeat
look
the
around,
motto again? Say the motto one more time.
yeah,
Mhm,
absolutely. It was that we believed that fathers were as important to the lives of children as mothers are.
mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the only problem is then when you look at what resources are out there to actually help fathers get more involved, stay
Mhm,
involved, improve their parenting skills, in most areas of the country, they don't exist. There are zero resources that are
Yeah.
mhm.
specifically intended for fathers.
Yes.
And unfortunately, what we found is that when something is just open to all parents,
Mhm.
it doesn't actually get dads in the door. It's too
Right.
foreign of an
Mm,
environment. It feels, scary. It feels like maybe not what they're supposed to be doing, reaching out for help, and
yeah.
so they just don't get services.
Yeah.
So that was what the Dads Matter program was all about. It was trying to correct that here in our county, and we had parenting classes that were specifically geared towards dads. We had case management, which is really just assisting people in whatever their goals are,
Mhm,
and we
mhm.
did a little bit of financial like economic stability,
Mm.
because money is one of the things that is the biggest stressors and one of the things that leads to father absence in the lives of
Right.
Mm.
kids, a lack of money. So
Right.
we tried to take that on a little bit as well.
Wow,
Mm.
I like that. And
Wow.
so you said some of the resources were basically it surrounded getting the fathers involved and having them have a place where they can go to share resources, to share stories. Like
Yeah.
I always say, when you hear that you're not the only one that's going through a specific issue, then it makes you feel more. It makes you feel right. Even if the
Yeah.
situation is wrong,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
makes you feel right, and you're just like, okay, this is where I can go. And it's interesting that you pointed out that when it's a program geared for both the fathers do tend to shy away, and you'll
Yes.
see more moms there.
Yes.
Plus, they don't get the individualized treatment, or not treatment, resources that they need as a dad, and what
Yes.
they're expected to do.
Yeah.
And so why did you get involved or develop the passion for that fatherhood advocacy? And what was it that
Mhm.
made you say, I know you said it was, your privileged upbringing, or just how you felt as a dad, but what made it so passionate? Like, you seem to have a passion for it. I know we talked previously, but
Mhm.
you have a definite passion for the program, and things of that nature. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you answered that specific part about your passion and why it's
Mhm.
so important for the advocacy.
Yeah, well, interestingly, at least I think so, is that even though I'm saying that I specifically think that we should increase services for fathers, right?
Mhm.
To increase father involvement in the lives of children. But in reality, where I'm coming from is really not that different from where anybody else in the helping
Right.
profession are coming from. I really just want to help out kids.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just that I see a really uh, solid path to go about doing that through working with dads. So sometimes I just bring it down to math as an example.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The math is that 50% of
Mhm.
parents are fathers. So
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's
Well,
brilliant.
that's a good. I
So
like that.
if we've got 50% of the parenting capacity, 50%
Mhm.
of the support for children on the table, but we're not doing anything to try to engage those parents, then we're leaving so much impact just
Yeah.
on the table, not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Um, and what it comes down to is that there are a lot of people who don't believe that by working with fathers, you really can help kids. They don't believe that fathers are as important,
Right.
or they don't believe that you can get dads to say yes to accepting
Right.
help. And from the last 6 years, I can say that both of those are not true. Dads
Right.
are vitally important, and you can get them to say yes. It's just you have to do it in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah,
I mean,
and as a
when I
dad,
was
you would know. I was gonna say, as a dad,
yeah.
Cindy, you would know what would
Huh?
get someone in the door as a
Yeah. Yeah.
dad.
When I was a parent coordinator in the school, it's funny you mentioned about if it's broad, you won't get fathers in. And that was exactly what I wish I had thought of when I was a parent coordinator. My job was to have parent breakfasts and arrange for meetings with the principals so they come in and sit and see their kids in different settings, and just award ceremonies and all these things to get parent involvement. But our topics were always broad. And or either they were broad, or if they were very specific, it was like Grandparents' Day. It was like Mother's event. It was like Sibling Day, but it was never really about fathers. I don't remember ever really doing something specifically for dads, and that's really unfortunate. But I think it's really boils down to our antiquated ways of thinking. Mother belongs at the home with the kids. Father's at work. He ain't got time for that. He's too busy. He's busy. He's working. And so we really haven't addressed that. There's a big shift. We have now a lot of fathers taking care of the children, paternity leave for dads now, and things like that. And I think we just haven't like caught up.
Yeah.
And so like I agree with you. That's totally ridiculous when we don't see any programs for men, because we do know statistically that children fare better, not just with two parents. Obviously, that's the best case, but when there's a father figure in the house, you see all those shows. I didn't have a father, and this is what I did. I didn't have a father, and this is what I did. So, what I wanted to ask you about, I know we had talked off screen about your personal past with your father. And I wanted to know about that. And I also want to know about the stigmas related to being fatherless, that fatherless idea. I want to know about that from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up never knowing my birth father. So that's something that, as a kid, you know something is different.
Mhm.
And now what's luckily is I have a very loving mother. I had a very loving grandmother that helped take care of me, but I was raised without both influences, the male influence and the female influence.
Mhm.
And really, when it comes down to parenting, here's another analogy that we would use sometimes in our parenting classes, is imagine if you had that basically if dad is not, imagine if you have two parents, right? And you have one parent that's behind the other. Well, the only thing that's in contact influencing that child is mom. Or imagine if dad is not there whatsoever. What you really want is you want two different perspectives.
Right.
And what we do is we'd hold a piece of paper between two objects and show, look, if you have just one, the paper can fall, but if you have two coming from two separate directions, then that kid is held, you know? And it really works the same way with parenting, that if you only have one perspective, if you only have that female perspective, then it's not as well-rounded of those influences on the child. And men and women, you could say it's biology, you could say it's how we socialize boys and girls, but for whatever reason, there are differences in the parenting styles, and that's good. It doesn't mean that, you know, dads are really bad parents because they're not like moms, or that moms are bad parents because they're not like dads. Two perspectives, and if you can respect both, then it's even better for the kids. So I didn't grow up. I became a father, and so coming into this work, there are biases that we enter in with, you know, both as parents ourselves and as children. And those are some of the things that I had to come over. I had to understand, like, you know, if dads are so important, then why do we have this huge problem of fatherlessness in the country? I believe right now, is when you look at involved fathers, it's about 1 in 4 kids in the country don't have an involved father. So that's a huge, I mean, that's millions of children around the country. And so if they're so important, why do we have this problem? And so I had to work through some of those biases, even as somebody who was, you know, helping to start a fatherhood program. And so it's something that everybody has to work through, is our experiences as parents, our experiences as children. And we have to get to a place where we're not blaming people for the decisions that they make, and are still just saying, like, not what's wrong with you, but like, what happened to you? And moving forward from that. Because if we're blaming, we're never going to make any progress. We have to meet people where they're at, dads, where they're at, and say, okay, that's where you're at now. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And how can we help you get there? And then we're going to be a lot more successful.
I like that. I really like that.
And that's really important, because, you know, part of what I was saying about the stigma was also based on race. I guess we always believe that, you know, people of color sort of abandon their children, or the black dads are not there or not around. You have a personal experience and a personal, not so. So it's not a color thing. If you're saying 1 in 4, I mean, that's a high statistic.
That's
like
25% of the families don't have a dad in the home. Yeah.
So that stigma attached to it's just a thing of color. And maybe they don't address it. They don't realize it is a universal problem and not just a one set of people's problem. You know, I think that's interesting what you said about those numbers, and sad and scary.
And if you look at the
go ahead. I'm sorry, Nick.
Just real quick, I'll throw out there that if you look at the statistics on fatherlessness, it is less associated, in fact, not at all associated with race or ethnicity, and it's far more associated with income,
economics.
Stress, you know, stress on the family, it makes, you know, relationships more difficult, and that is really the number one predictor of father absence, is the relationship with the child's mom. So
I like that. So, and that led into the next question that I had, because part of your program, when I was looking at the website, which it's still up, and hopefully you guys do get the funding back, but what I was looking at was that you offered financial education, and it was an important part of the program to offer financial education and not assistance, but so much education and budgeting and things of that nature. And you kind of touched on it, but that was one of the questions that I had about the financial part of it. Why is that such an integral part of fatherhood and helping fathers sustain themselves?
Yeah, I think there's 2 parts of it. I'll see if I can remember the second part after I say the first. But one is a little bit what I said earlier about meeting fathers where they're at, right? So we may say this is what a father's role is. A father's role is, you know, a equal parent. But that's not where a lot of dads are coming from.
Right.
They're thinking more of provider and disciplinarian, especially in the, people who have less income. That tends to be the mindset.
Yeah.
Provider and disciplinarian. And so
Wow.
if you don't work with them on the thing that's important to them, which is the financial part, well, then you're not really meeting them where they're at.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
And then just the second part was that the money is what couples fight about. It's what is the thing that separates people the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the relationship with the
Yep.
child's mom is what is the predictor of father absence. So you kind of just going further down the line towards the root causes of some issues, and that's why it's really important to help people on the financial side as well.
To address it, to develop budgets, to have an idea of how you're going to allocate your funds and what you're going to do with those monies. And that's really important. And I noticed you said 1 in 4 kids are without a father. And did that include, with that study, does that include just them being outside of the home, or is that them being completely out of the child's life? Because there's a big difference. My oldest son, his dad and I weren't together, but he was an integral part of his life. So what's I don't know if you know whether or not it's the statistic of just completely absent, or is it just out of the home,
Yeah, that gets a little tricky to answer, but so the 1 in 4 statistics, that comes straight from the Census Bureau. It's about where kids live.
Okay.
If they live with their mom or live with their dad more than 50% of the time.
Okay.
So if it's less than 50%, the dad is considered a non-custodial father. So now that does not take into account that there are so many dads who are technically non-custodial, have less than 50% custody, but are still so involved with the lives of the kids. It's doesn't mean by any means that that's a for sure thing. But there have been studies on non-custodial parents and the rates of actual involvement, which are things like being responsible for the kid, taking them to doctor's appointments, talking to them about their day, knowing things about like who their teacher is and stuff like that. And when you, for people who have less than 50% custody, the rates of actual involvement do plummet.
Yeah.
So that's the best statistic that we have. We don't have anything that's national that's going to say about actual involvement, but there are studies that link the two.
Okay.
It's so funny. It's so funny because if you're married together, I mean, some together couples, the woman, the wife, or the husband might say, he doesn't take her to the doctor. He doesn't do the school appointment. He doesn't do. So it's so funny that they're measuring it that way. Because I mean, you could technically say that if you're together and he's always working or she's always working, that burden is going to naturally fall on one person. I mean, when me and my husband were together, it was him always taking him to school because I had to be to work so early. I couldn't take him to school. So I would have been the non-custodial jerk.
Yeah, but and keep in mind, going to work and stuff like that, that is taking care of kids too. I mean, there is no taking care of kids if there's no work. So
that's part of the financial part. That's providing part of it all. And I noticed that you guys gave certificates as well in that program. What were the certificates for? I'm just curious because I saw the pictures and they were so proud to have those certificates. So what were they for?
That's cool. That's pretty cool.
It's like you completed something apparently.
Yeah. And for a couple of our classes, most of our classes, it was a 32-hour curriculum. So 2 hours a week, 16 weeks. I mean, if you think about it, that's a college course. That's a semester at college. And so it was a huge commitment to stay connected with us, stay engaged with us for that long. And we wanted to give people something that they could show for their efforts. And so we would invite the whole family, even if it was just dad that was coming to class. We'd say, hey, invite your mom, if you have a significant other or a partner, invite them, invite your kids, and we'd all come together for a celebration to say, like, look what you have achieved.
Wow.
Because for dads to come into parenting classes, that is bravery right there. I mean, like, it may not be, I don't know, something that's traditionally masculine bravery, like, I don't know, fighting. Like that.
It's not macho.
It's not macho, but it is brave because that's something that we are not supposed to, we're told we're not supposed to do. We're not supposed to ask for help. And so the dads who actually go out and do that, I mean, they should be celebrated.
Yeah, they
showing it
definitely
looks like
should.
it looks like weakness or something.
Which we should change the stigma associated with that, where it's weak
Right.
to go in and get help or talk about the issues you have as being a father, or to even try to improve being a dad. Like, why
Yeah.
is that a sign of
Yeah.
weakness? We're
It's
getting away from that.
traditional.
We are
Yeah.
getting away from
Yeah.
that because we do have more fathers that are taking care of their kids, like they're
Mhm.
the sole provider, or they're
Mhm.
the stay-at-home dad. So we are getting away from the traditional where fathers are not involved or not as important as society has deemed. And I think that's why some of the programs go away, because society at large considers dads to not be as important as moms. And I 100% disagree with that.
Yeah, and
100%.
you've seen it on those shows, Everybody Loves Raymond, or those kind of shows where the father is disengaged and it's cute. It's like, I'm going to play golf on my day off instead of spending the day with the kids, and let her do all the work. She's a housewife, but let her have them the whole time, Saturdays, Sundays. It doesn't matter. And those shows were very popular. And I always hated those shows where a woman was hitting him. He was a big clod, a dummy. He couldn't remember anything. He didn't know his doctor's appointment. She was doing everything. And I think those things perpetuated some things that were antiquated and built into our system of woman take care of kids, man go out and get the meat. That's,
Yeah. There's
mhm.
whole dissertations on, like, for example, The Simpsons, Homer Simpson being an idiot, Married with Children. I forget what
Yeah.
the guy's name was in there, Married with Children, but he was a jerk.
Al Bundy.
Al
Al
Bundy.
Bundy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's changing a little bit, but it still exists. There's a lot
It
of
still exists.
representation. Yeah.
There's a lot more shows like that where the man is dumb, he's lazy, he's overweight, he's just a slob. Yeah. What I wanted to know from you was, I know we had a lot of things going on over the past year with the riots, the rallies and stuff, defund. And they were talking about reallocating money towards some programs related to children. So, and I know your program did lose funding. I want to know your thoughts on that, and possibly what's your hope for this reinventing itself, your program, now that there is this push to remove funds and put them somewhere else for kids.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but support it. So this is our program is all about prevention, right?
Mhm.
And so it never made sense to me to just like not help people throughout their entire life and then punish them at the end, and that's what I feel like law enforcement is there. It's not about safety, it's about punishing criminals.
Right.
What if we could provide service that, like, people don't become criminals because they're bad, they do it because it's the best option for them,
Right.
given their situation. So what if we could provide support to families that would get them off that path? And so, yes, I think that would be a great idea for more support for families. And then, of course, when I'm talking about families, there's an underserved population here of working with dads. So the good news is, I think there are some federal initiatives. I don't know anything enough about it to talk about it in the situation, but I think there are some more federal initiatives to get more funding for prevention work with families.
It only makes sense.
Yes, it does. It really does. Because I mean, some of the root causes, and I've seen it throughout my entire life, where there's an absent dad. And like I said, I 100% am an advocate for dads being in the lives of boys. We all have boys on the call, but I mean, boys and girls. It prevents girls from, it gives them the self-esteem that they need. It prevents them from doing certain things. And the same thing with boys. I mean, a dad is important in both in kids' lives. And if you have programs to where they can actually be a part of the lives and be a better father and learn how to deal with even kids that are not doing what they're supposed to do, like they're running the streets, how do you get them out of the streets? How do you pull them back in?
Right.
You can prevent a lot of that by having these programs that where the dad can take his son or daughter to a field trip with you guys in those programs. So it just really makes sense. And I don't see how we miss the ball or drop the ball on family orientation and involvement with dads. It's just it's sad.
Tiffany's more optimistic than I am. I must confess. I'm just so cynical. I don't know. It's like, it's almost like it's on purpose that you're keeping these programs away. You know this is beneficial,
Yeah.
but you don't do anything about it. What is the behind the reason why you don't do it? Like you said, I love what you said about preventing it. It's almost as though you doing it on you're making your agency very needed. So we have crime, so we need this whole criminal thing. But maybe we might not need it. Like, we might not need it. And I just think, I don't know, it's like the garbage man that loves the garbage in the street. Like, I have a job. I don't know. I'm cynical. I'm probably too cynical.
Well, hopefully that is hopefully with the entire movement, everything will reinvent itself, where we're seeing more allocation toward those preventative programs, because we need it. Studies show that it works. Studies show that if you catch a kid first have both parents involved, even if they're not together. We actually did another show on that, where even if you're not together, that does not mean that you can't be an involved parent. It doesn't mean that you can't pick your child up from school, and that falls on the women and the men to work through those situations, of course, for the betterment of the child. But we see that those programs work. Spending time in sports or activities like cooking, like Cindy was an advocate of cooking. Spending time doing those things together keeps the kids off of the street, and it keeps their minds busy. It keeps them active. So, I mean, I just can't see why. I'm sorry to keep going on about it, but it's just, it's needed. So.
We even have a phrase for it: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And it's like, if you care about, hey, let's just say that all that we care about is money, right? Let's just say that. Well, then this is a great investment. Prevention is a great investment, and father involvement is a bit unexplored, but there's so much, you were talking about the outcomes for kids who don't have involved fathers. For girls, they do better in math and sciences. They're less likely to become sexually active as teens. Again, because it's that confidence and that understanding of what a good man looks like if they have an involved father. Boys, this is always an interesting one. You think of with all the rough housing that is stereotypical about, also backed up by research. You think that maybe boys would be more aggressive. It's actually the opposite. There's less bullying behavior, and less strict gender roles. I always thought that was really interesting. So you're saying by introducing the gender that that matches with the sex of the child, you're going to say that they're going to become less strict with their gender roles, and that's true. And again, it comes down to that confidence and just knowing and being comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then, less likely to use drugs, less likely to be involved with crime, less likely to go to jail, less likely to be obese. There's health properties to it too. Like I said, 30 years of research on father involvement. It's all there. It's just requiring somebody to pick it up. So right now, the major source of funding is the federal government. It's the Department of Health and Human Services. So that's the really only sustained source. There are a couple of private foundations. There's a couple of states that have given some funding towards it. Unfortunately, California is not one of them. But around the country, it is gaining popularity. It's just, we're not there yet. And things are changing on the ground naturally. I just want it to be, like you were talking about, kids and young parents these days, father involvement is increasing. I just want to see it go faster.
Right.
And I know that we could make it go faster if we supported it.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you say California is. First of all, California is like the entire West Coast. It's the it's the entire.
The most people in the world.
Yeah, that's an entire country by itself, and they don't have the funding that's needed to support these programs. Which is, like I said, I'm hopeful. We're yin and yang. I'm the hopeful one, Cindy's the cynical one, and I'm believing that these programs are going to start coming back, and they're going to there, there's going to be widespread support for them, and they're also going to have a lot of dads involved, and moms pushing the dads to be involved, or supporting the dads, I should say, to be involved. I know, Cindy, you had a question about the involvement as well, or the opportunities for involvement.
How can people get involved, like mentoring or volunteering in any way? How can they get involved? With either, I know your program doesn't exist anymore, but is there maybe some other way people can still get involved?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, that funding source still exists. So even though my program lost funding, it's a competitive process, and the federal government picked somebody else, but it still exists around the country.
Okay.
So anybody listening to this, they could look for their local program. And if there isn't one, so then they could volunteer there. If there isn't one, well, then it's on them to start one. And there's a lot of resources out there. One is was started by President Obama. It was the National, let me see if I can get the acronym right. The National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse. That's the name, but the web address is a lot easier. It's fatherhood.gov.
Okay.
That's a little easier, right?
And we'll put it in the link. We'll put everything in the link in the description.
Yes.
So
and I like that.
There's resources for programs, there's resources ads there, and there's a couple other organizations that really you could have an out of the box. When I say out of the box, I don't mean like I mean like literally you open up a box and you've got a fatherhood program that are out there from, for example, fatherhood.org, which is the National Fatherhood Initiative. So there are resources out there for people who either want to join or if somebody wanted to start a fatherhood program.
Okay. And like you said, if there are no resources in your area, you can look into starting something. Or even, and it doesn't even have to be an organization such as the Dads Matter organization. It can be, hey, let's start a dad group where we walk our children, or we take if you have babies. I see a dad in my neighborhood. He walks his son ever since he was a little baby. He walks like a 2-mile, I think it's a 2-mile radius from the front to the back. Take your kids on a walk just to spend that fatherly time and just bond with other dads and share stories with other dads. So it doesn't have to be a full program, or but if you do have a program that you can get involved in, or do both. So
and it may be in the schools may have something, the police department may have something. Your local, like you said, the health departments and stuff, they usually have things on the bulletin board. The community, every neighborhood has those community bulletin boards, your district, whatever. I think it's like you said, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It could just be a few of you. I mean, that's how a lot of the Mommy and Me group started, very small with just a few angry moms about some issue. And then they get together and then they just, it blows up into something else. So yeah.
And that's how I met a lot of my mommy friends, through just a simple mommy group. We had like maybe 5 of us, and it exploded to like 25. So I mean, it's worth it for the bonding of the dads, and just to share the stories and give the moms a weekend off, or some time off on the weekend.
How about that?
And it can be hard for people to get dads to join in, just because, again, those gender roles, it makes it like we don't socialize the same way typically. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are resources from the last 20 years of programs that have been trying to write down and create resources for new programs, so they can share what they've learned about father engagement, which is just getting dads to say yes to any sort of help, even a support group. So that information exists and it's out there available for anybody who wants to look it up. And like I said, a great place to start is fatherhood.gov.
Fatherhood.gov. I like that. I like that. So the last question, we truly appreciate you coming on, and we ask this for all of our guests. And I always have the disclaimer, if I still don't know, I'm going to have to think of the answer to if I was asked this question. But if you had a magic wand, to do anything with, or to go anywhere or change anything, what would you do with the wand if you had that wand to do it?
Oh, I think that's because that means that the sky's the limit. So it would just be equity for everybody. Like we live in a society where everybody actually does have equal opportunity. That would be, but
Wow.
yeah,
I
that
think
would
you
be a
get the
cool,
one.
cool place. All right, send me one. I'll give you my address.
You get the
Not
one.
okay.
I like that. I like that. Equity for everyone, where we're all starting off on the same equal footing, no matter
Same
what.
footing.
So I like that answer.
It
I
makes
like it.
sense. It makes sense. The country's better when people are better. It makes sense. It just doesn't, I don't want to look for my car and see if I live in New York City. I don't want to look out the window and see my car busted into. I'd rather donate to a program that prevents people from bursting into my car.
Yeah,
it's been robbed like 3 times. I'd rather not see that happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he gets the wand. You can.
Gets the
We'll
wand.
we'll
He gets
send
the
it to you.
Is that like that?
The magic wand. But we truly appreciate you
Thank you
being
so
on,
much.
Nick. Thank you so much. And you guys, if you want to start a fatherhood program, join a fatherhood program. Let's remove some of the stigma associated with that and just get involved. And as women, we support or can support dads doing those things, and it doesn't take away from them. So thanks again, Nick, for coming on. You guys know where to find us, Two Poly Chicks at on Instagram, Gmail, where else? Facebook.
I'm watching her struggle. I'm gonna watch her
Instagram,
struggle.
Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, and Poly Chicks on YouTube. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thank you.